What is up, guys? In today's video, I'm going to be talking about what the best ranged weapon in Fortnite is right now. I've gotten asked a bunch since the Futurama update dropped if the Bender Shiny Metal Ray Gun is worth using over the MK Alpha. So we're going to be talking about that, as well as another weapon that I think is just better than both of them. As always, if you guys do enjoy this video, remember to give it a like, subscribe if you'd like to see more, and comment down below what your favorite main ranged weapon is currently in the loot pool. At this point, I feel like we're all familiar with the MK Alpha, and I don't really need to go too into it, but in short, I feel like it's just a very generic AR, which sounds bad, but I just mean it's very solid in every category, and it doesn't really have any major strength or weakness. It has solid damage, a solid fire rate, and it also has a red dot and controllable recoil. I think this is probably going to be the best option for most players when it comes to your main AR or ranged weapon. It's pretty easy to use, it's pretty reliable, it's pretty consistent. It'll get the job done most of the time, and like I said, for most people, this is probably going to be the best choice, even though I do think there's a weapon that's going to be better. The Bender Shiny Metal Ray Gun is very interesting because it actually kills incredibly fast in its ideal range, but it doesn't have very much range at all, and when you reach its damage drop-off, it's putting out a measly 8 damage, and that range isn't that ridiculous. It drops off pretty quickly. I don't know the exact range on it, but it's nothing spectacular. And so you would kind of think, okay, if it kills fast up close to medium range, but not at long range, maybe it's best as an SMG replacement. And that would be true, but it also has some sort of weird charge up time where when you hit the shoot button, it doesn't just start shooting right away. There's I don't know, a quarter or a half second delay before you actually shoot because it has to charge up its laser. And that is very detrimental in close range. You know, I've talked about this so many times on the channel, but if you're using a shot, a pump and an SMG in close range, you kind of want to pump, swap to your SMG to fill the time it takes your shotgun to pump, and then hopefully swap back to your pump for the final shot if you don't just kill them off your SMG spray. And this would be not great with the ray gun because by the time it's able to charge up and finally start doing damage, your pump probably would have been ready to shoot again anyways. It can kill incredibly fast in close range, don't get me wrong, but with that charge up time, I would rather just use the combat SMG or a flapjack AR if I wanted a close range follow-up weapon for my shotgun. So it just does kind of best in medium range fights, and it does do very well there, and it is very fun to use, and it's very irritating to play against as well. I feel like it puts a lot of pressure on your opponent, but I would just much rather use the MK over the Bender Shiny Metal Ray Gun as far as it being a ranged weapon goes, because the MK also kind of excels at medium range, but it has potential for longer range. Whereas with 8 damage on the Bender Shiny Metal Ray Gun, if you're shooting at someone that's a decent distance away, let's just call it 40-50 meters, it's nothing incredibly long by any means, but I feel at that point it's probably going to be doing 8 damage. It's pretty much up to the opponent whether or not you kill them. Unless they're incredibly weak, they would just have to sit there and let you eliminate them to die to 8 damage at a time. It's not that big of a deal at long range, so I feel the MK is comparable in medium range. The Bender Shiny Metal Ray Gun might be a bit better in medium range. It feels like it kills very fast, but the MK can do medium range, and then it can also do long range, whereas I feel the Bender Shiny Metal Ray Gun is kind of in a weird spot where it's good and it's fun to use, but it's not really the best at anything, and it's also not very versatile. So it's if you're not versatile and you're also not the best at anything, what is the point of you? You know, it's a fun weapon to use, but I don't think it's going to be the best by any means. But what I do think is going to be the best medium to long range weapon right now is actually going to be the Mammoth pistol. I initially did not like this weapon. I've been dealing with so much PC related input delay problems, which obviously makes it really rough to use a precision weapon like this. But I switched to DX12 over performance mode, and my game has felt a lot smoother, and I've actually been really enjoying this as a main ranged weapon. I think I'd probably be more consistent with the MK Alpha, and for super long range fights, 100+ meters, using the Mammoth pistol on controller is not ideal. I also play linear, which makes it even harder to use at long range. But I feel long range fights in Fortnite are usually something that both players have to opt into for that fight to actually go anywhere, because usually if someone's shooting at you from super far away like that, you can get away from them, and then on the flip side they can get away from you. So even if you tag them for 100, it's not really going to go anywhere. So the fact that I'd rather have the MK at incredibly long range isn't that big of a deal to me when it comes to the Mammoth pistol. But what I do think this makes this weapon great is how long you have to be exposed and how long your opponent has to be exposed for you to do damage to them. You can peek in an instant, throw out basically 100 damage, and then go into cover. Whereas like with the MK and the ray gun, you have to be exposed for like the entire time you're dealing damage to the opponent. That also leaves you more exposed to take damage as well. Whereas like with this, you just pop out of cover, shoot, go back into cover. It's kind of like thinking of like a pump versus an auto shotty. Like the pump on paper is just worse, but the way you can play around cover and the way you can just be like a nuisance with the pump and kind of deal a lot of damage in an instant and then go back to safety is what has made the pump so good. And I feel like that kind of also applies to the Mammoth pistol. When I've talked about this before, I was talking about it mainly in the context of close range, and I talked about how if you miss a single shot, your game is probably over. But that was within the context of close range fights, because, you know, if you're close to the opponent and you're using this, they're also close to you, and that fight is happening. Whereas like in more medium range fights, you can peek from cover, throw out a shot, go back into cover. And so even if you miss a shot or two, it's not the end of the world with this pistol in medium to long range fights. In close range, missing a shot is very detrimental, but I feel like it's way less coin flippy in medium to long range fights because things are a lot safer. And when you do hit a shot, that's potentially game over for that opponent. You can, you know, maybe swap to your repeater at that point and just splash damage them out, shockwave onto them. It's very difficult to play against. And I think this is also really good if you're on the defensive. Like let's say you get caught off guard and the opponent fries you, and then you know they're pushing you. You know, you can kind of like see from behind cover in this game. You can peek with this pistol, throw out 90 damage. You're not going to expose yourself for too long that you're just going to die off that. And also now your opponent is kind of put in a situation where like, do they back off and give you a chance to heal, or do they just push you while you're both weak? I feel like just being able to deal a lot of damage in an instant makes this weapon very good in those types of situations as well. Like I was talking about in the long range fights, both players kind of have to opt into it, and medium range is kind of like that as well. And when you have a weapon where you can just jiggle peek, throw out 100 damage, and then go back to safety, it is very abusable and it's very good. It's basically like a sniper that excels in like medium fights. It's just very good. I think it's also better at dealing with players who shockwave up, because if you're able to hit them with this, that's 100 damage. Whereas like with the MK, you have to hit several shots on them, and it's like harder to track the people shockwaving, I feel like, with the, you know, the scoped in ARs. So like dealing with players shockwaving, I also feel like is much easier with this pistol. I was getting tagged a lot when I was shockwaving, and I was surprised, but being on the flip side of it and using it as like my main ranged weapon, I feel like it is easier to hit people shockwaving than I thought. So I would definitely recommend trying the Mammoth pistol. Even if you aren't the best player, like I was saying, I don't think missed shots is as game-changing with using it as a medium to long-range weapon as it was a close-range weapon. When you were using it as a close-range weapon, I felt like you had to be perfect all of the time. But with this medium to long-range, it's a lot more forgiving because you're not risking as much to throw out a shot. You're not going to be exposed for very long. So if you miss, you miss. Who cares? So you just reload and then go back to it. You have that time to reload because you're playing off cover. And when it comes to using this, I feel like it's easier to just go for body shots. Like if you can hit a headshot, nice, cool. But just consistently throwing out 90 damage body shots is really good. And it's very easy to hit a body shot. Like just doing 100 damage to the opponent, for how difficult it is to do, it's very game-changing, I think. And it seems like this gun, the bullet always goes where the dot is, regardless if you have first shot accuracy or not, regardless if you're even aiming or not. I'm not 100% on that, but that definitely seems to be the case when I've been using it. So don't feel like you have to wait for first shot accuracy. Just put the dot on the opponent that's in the center of your crosshair, pull the trigger. You're probably going to hit them and you're going to do a lot of damage. But that is going to be it for this video. I hope you guys found this helpful, informative, interesting. If you did, remember to give it a like, subscribe if you like to see more, and comment down below which medium to long range weapon is your favorite. I would definitely recommend trying to get comfortable with the Mammoth pistol, because I think as more and more people using it, using the MK is kind of just going to be a death sentence, because you're going to be peeking, spraying, they're just going to peek for a moment, tag you for 100, and that is a fight that very much favors the Mammoth pistol. But let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. Give the video a like if you enjoyed it, and I will see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching.